The rumors are swirling. Who's on the move? Who will stay and return to be a Philadelphia Phillies player next year? We don't know. Nick Castellanos, Rhys Hoskins, Aaron Nola, Sonny Gray. So many names that are being tossed around. Welcome to PHLY Phillies podcast. Jamie Lynch, Renee Washington, Tyler Zulli. We've got a lot to get into today. Who said the offseason, God bless you, Tyler? Who said anything about the offseason being off? I mean, we are not that. Yesterday alone was just a lot of different reports coming out, from Dave Dombrowski's comments to different, conversations at winter meetings. It's been a crazy time. Welcome into the chat. There's a lot of you guys that are already in the chat sharing your thoughts. Listen, we're going to get into all of that today. We're going to do a deep dive, unpacking all that happened in the last 24 hours since we saw you last. And there's plenty of that to get into today, Jamie.
Yeah, this is a more rumor mill heavy GM's meetings than I ever recall. Maybe it's because the Phillies themselves had a lot of questions. Do you run it back? Do you change it up? It obviously starts with the Bryce Harper news, but there's a lot of early rumors, as you mentioned, Sonny Gray, which we'll get into. But there's a lot of league notes coming out of these GM meetings, and it appears they've actually called the meetings off early because there was a virus going around, and I guess a lot of executives got diarrhea and they ran for the hills.
Too much conversation up close in each other's faces.
Yeah, a bunch of cowards. I mean, is diarrhea really that bad? You throw in an Imodium, you get back down there. Play like a champion. No excuses, Renee.
Yes.
Yes, the GM's meeting's called off a little early. But I would imagine agents and front office execs are still in lines of talk because there's been... Look, I'm not going to tell you the last 16 years I've studied the GM's meetings every single year and tracked the amount of rumors, but it certainly feels like it's more active than it's ever been.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Let's go through some of the comments in the chat. I know you guys were in there before we even began the show. Love that. Hit that like button. Continue dropping comments.
Mickey
We're
likes
gonna be
your
sharing.
fall look.
Oh, thank you, Mickey Durkin.
A lot of earth tones.
I am bringing the earth. Listen, we're both switching up a little bit. Jamie's wearing sneakers today.
I got sneakers on.
I'm wearing more earth tones, and I'm embracing the fall attire because 'tis the season. I
was around a bunch of high school kids today, and I was like, all right, I got to put sneakers on. I was like, what are my coolest, hippest shoes?
Those are cool.
Yeah,
those are some
the classic
show
Jordans.
Show them off. Oh yeah,
so
can't go wrong.
So the kids wouldn't roast my ass. So I put on my J's and
automatically won some cool points just from your kicks alone.
But I am wearing socks, and I will admit I hate it. My feet, they're like sweat boxes. My feet are trapped.
Listen, today we have so much to get into, and I don't want to roast you right now the way that I need to roast you because I am a sock slippers type of person.
Gross.
And you can't even wear socks or sneakers. I don't understand, but yes. All right. So I saw MBDBDBF you're talking about. They just announced Bryce wants to play first. Why would we be talking Vlad Jr.? We're going to talk about that for sure. About Bryce.
Vlad Jr.? What is going on?
I don't know. Tyler, I'm sorry. I know you're working away, but when you get a chance, can you scroll up a little bit for me? I know I saw a lot. Eugene Crowder's saying the culture may need some tweaking, maybe too much of a fraternity vibe. And that's, hey, I've got thoughts. Dave, you called Ohtani to Rangers 8 months ago. DJ, welcome in, DJ 1698. You're saying, yes, trade Cassie. You can't take him whiffing all the time. Whiff it good. That's not the real song, but I changed the words if you didn't notice, Jamie. And then Kim is saying with Nola and Hoskins, can you actually move the mouse a little bit? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Tyler. With Nola and Hoskins not coming back, we can use their salaries for pitching. Cassie needs to stay. Trout can't stay healthy. I know there were some comments about Trout in the chat. We're not talking about Mike Trout, I don't think, on here. Other names that we're going to be getting into. Plenty of names. Gosh, where do we even begin? Let's start with Nick Castellanos because I think that was the one out of everything that happened yesterday that really surprised me, that reports have indicated that there are discussions that the Phillies could be looking to trade one of their core players. And so the question is, who is that? Oh yeah, it's Nick Castellanos. Cassie Clutch could be Cassie out the door. And so Nick Castellanos who we've talked about yesterday, of course, financially looking at how much money's left. According to MLB.com's Mark Faison, the Phillies are saying that they are open to trading Nick Castellanos. He actually was quoted saying the Phillies are open to the idea of trading Nick Castellanos, whose streaky ways and disappointing performance in the NLCS could result in an offseason change. Of course, we did see that very frustrating performance, just one hit in the NLCS, and that was in Game 1. And as we talked about, Nick Castellanos with 3 years left on his deal, a lot of money that's going Nick's way, and someone that could absolutely be a big tool and piece in a trade with having a $60 million over the next 3 seasons that he's owed. So Nick Castellanos, what were your first thoughts when you heard that report coming out that possibly Nick is done, and Mark is saying that might be looking to make a move on him?
Yeah, so it's from Mark Faison, who works for MLB Network and MLB.com. He's been pretty good in the past. He got a one-on-one with Dave Dombrowski, so I'm sure they had some conversations. The first time I considered this as a possibility was, I think, Monday, when I read the reports, or the rumors, I should say, that already signed existing contracts were a hotter commodity than they've been in the past compared to the open market free agent contracts that teams are looking for. So immediately I thought of Nick Castellanos, because I actually think a 3 or $60 million deal for him, I don't want to say undervalued, but it's a pretty damn good team-friendly deal. I don't think that's a lot of money. I'm not pushing Nick out the door, because I think Nick is a really good player. So I don't want to rush to do this just to possibly downgrade. Like, I think, one, you'd have to get something decent back, and you're probably not going to get an outfielder back for him. Maybe there's a high-end bullpen piece you could get for him. It all depends on the trade partner you find. I'm not rushing to do this by any means, but I certainly would take calls on him. So I'm more on the side of keep Castellanos, but I'm certainly not saying no to any phone calls that come my way, because I do think that's a pretty decent deal for a guy. Baseball's tough. There's a lot of ups. There's a lot of downs. And when Nick's ups are up, they're spectacular. When his downs are down, they're horrific. And he looks like he's never played Major League Baseball before. So, the guy you would get, and we'll talk about some of those outfield names today, is it really that much better than Nick Castellanos? I don't really know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Because some of these guys, in terms of free agents, like very comparable players to Nick Castellanos. Then the question becomes, can you get them for cheaper and address more holes elsewhere? That would be one of the other reasons why you do it. So certainly not rushing to trade him, but also not saying no to anything either. So that's kind of where I fall on the Castellanos thing. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think when I look across the board at the outfield, we all know Nick Castellanos is most capital, the most opportunity, and compared to Brandon Marsh, Johan Rojas, and Kristen Pache, Nick Castellanos is the one that has the most opportunity if you're looking at a trade piece. So I think the value that he has makes him worth, as you talk about, dangling him in some conversations. I agree with you, actually. I don't think you have to jump and it's this panic, let's get rid of him, we don't want him anymore. But I do think that Nick Castellanos, if you're talking about possibly bringing in somebody cheaper, maybe now you could bring in a couple guys off of that $60 million 3 years. Who knows what possibilities are out there in the trade market. So I like the idea of packaging him in a trade, because let's be honest, what are you really going to get from Yoro? I mean, granted, he had a great center field performance, but his at-bats aren't great.
I don't even want him on the opening day roster, Johan Rojas.
Yeah, exactly. What are you going to get from him? Brandon Marsh. Nick Castellanos is someone that gives you more trade value. And not to mention, actually, I know Eugene Krabs said it in the chat about maybe shaking things up in terms of the culture. This might be an opportunity. Oh, Tyler. Jamie didn't see it. I saw it, so it's fine.
What?
Jamie didn't see it. We're good. We're good. It's fine. It's fine.
I might have to have Chris send me a new one.
Everything's fine.
I'm
going to get one. I might not even get Citizens Bank Park.
I'm going to get one right. Jamie is not.
I've lost all confidence.
Finally, I'm going to get one. But what I like is the idea that we're at least having this conversation. I think if anything else, and you guys that have watched the shows, Jamie and Tyler, you know this, I have been consistently on that hill of needing to make some changes, and you can't continue to bring back the same personnel, because Talent aside, the way that these guys bring the best out of each other or the worst out of each other has not been successful enough because there's no championship. So there needs to be a change. Aaron Nola or pitching is a change in general. Yes. But I do think on the other side, there needs to be a change in the outfield and the at-bats. So to be able to at least see that where Dave Dombrowski's having these conversations makes me very encouraged that the Phillies have listened to us. Dave's been listening to us here at PHLY Phillies Podcast. Maybe not. Because I do think it's time to shake things up a little bit, get some new blood, get some new voices in the clubhouse.
You also don't want to shake it up too much.
No, and I've never been the
But think about the changes already coming. Rhys Hoskins and Aaron Nola.
I mean,
so I don't want to shake it up just for the sake of shaking it up because guaranteed. The success they've had is legit. Like, I know it hasn't resulted in a title, but making an NLCS and a World Series in back-to-back years, you're damn close. You're knocking on the front door. So I think the Aaron Nola change is a big one. I think Rhys Hoskins change is a big one. I don't know.
One of those three is coming back, in my opinion. I don't see a world where all three of them are out the door. So that's where I think it's good. I just don't want to having these conversations
that much because,
and I've never been a throw it all away and start over because I think the Phillies are a couple of pieces away. I don't think it needs to be a drastic change, but my point is I like the fact they're at least having these conversations
I like that too.
Because there is clearly a need to shake things up. And now you can entertain some of these straight talks. You're sitting in a really good position with someone like Nick. You know what you're going to get from him. And now you're sitting in a good position to at least toy with the ideas, have some feelers out there, see what's coming back from other teams. And if there's some that makes sense, find a way to, maybe you make the move. But I don't imagine any world where you're going to be seeing Aaron, Rhys, and Nick walk out the door. I do think that some of them are coming back. I know in the chat, Mickey Durkin, you're saying you were the kiss of death because you bought a Nick Castellanos jersey. Maybe not. Maybe you'll still be able to wear that jersey. Yes,
I think it's more likely he's here than not. Like, if I had to give it a pie chart, I think it's 75% he's here.
I think that's fair.
25% he moved. Like you said, I mean, he's a trade candidate because he could potentially bring you something because that contract is fair by open market standards. When you look at what guys are projected to make, I mean, a guy like Alex Verdugo, who to me, is just fine, barely moves my needle at all. He's projected to make, 10 or $11 million on the open market. So
right.
I'd have to see where the other improvement, it's hard to talk about that in a speculative form because of what route you would go with it. Like, where are you spending the money you're saving?
Right.
Who are you signing to replace him? Because it's not like other sports where it's like a 1-for-1 trade where you're trading Nick Castellanos and just getting a cheaper right fielder. Mm-hmm. You're trading him for either a prospect or a bullpen guy, and then you're freeing up money to spend. So, speculatively, none of these outfielders I like as much as I like Castellanos. So it's like, all right, so if that's, and I agree with you, I like that they're having these conversations because Dombrowski is historically pretty aggressive and he's usually pretty quick moving in these things. So the fact he's having these conversations is good. Learn what his value is. It's what Howie Roseman does every single week in the NFL. You got to know what guys are worth. I don't know who's going to replace him in right field. Is it a Jorge Soler? Is it a Teoscar Hernandez? Is it an Adam Duvall? Some of these names I like, but I don't really love Nick either. I like Nick. I like him a lot, but I don't love him. And I don't really love any of these free agents. So it's it's a tough conversation because not in terms of I care about his feelings, but in terms of what's the replacement plan? Yeah. Because it's not straight up a 1-for-1 type of thing.
No. And I know Dave Dombrowski was telling reporters the Phillies are pretty well set on the position player side. Also, there's been comments as you guys are talking about moving Bryce back into right field. He did, of course, mention that the plan is to play Bryce only at first base next year and that there are no plans to occasionally play him in right field. That's coming from Dombrowski himself.
And I think that's the best case for the team, honestly.
He said also that he feels like he's in a position at first base where you can now start to think about Bryce's future and you can start, as he's aging, of course, it definitely preserves him so that Bryce, can gladly go to outfield, but he's committed to bring that type of guy and be that first baseman. So I know the conversation in chat, some people are making the argument of if you do get rid of Nick Castellanos, you trade him, you can have reset first base and move Bryce back into right field. But of course, the Phillies aren't looking to do that. So I think that another point of it is, as mentioned, was with Nick Castellanos being floated out there, you can get some prospects back from, maybe you can get somebody cheaper. And where that's, now that $60 million 3-year is being able to be spread over maybe a couple guys, I don't know. But I do think it's great, in my opinion, and very encouraging that Dave Dombrowski is at least having these conversations, because my biggest pet peeve has been, let's not do the exact same thing next year and expect different results. So Aaron Nola conversations are happening. Rhys Hoskins conversations are happening. Nick, and who knows who else. I mean, we haven't heard anything about Brandon Marsh, but the fact that these conversations are being had shows me that Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies also can acknowledge, like we have. And I know some people in the chat were saying it, Lisa, different people were saying it, that there needs to be a change on the other side of the ball as well, not just on pitching. So that part has been encouraging for me, that I was like, okay, good. I feel a little bit better about the future of the Phillies and some changes that we might see coming up.
Yeah, some of the chats were talking about, could you, like you said, Rhys. Let me just say this as somebody that hasn't talked to Bryce Harper directly, but just I feel like I have a good read on this just from like knowing who Bryce Harper is. Bryce Harper doesn't want to be the bad guy. Mm-hmm. He wants to play first base every day. End of story. Like, I don't think Rhys Hoskins is gone. All right. We just have to accept that he is gone. I don't think there's any scenario where you move Castellanos to keep, Rhys in the system. Bryce Harper is never going to say that because he knows what it means for Rhys Hoskins. He essentially signed his death certificate with the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, the Phillies are going to fall on the sword for Bryce Harper and say, well, we want to preserve him, and we believe he's a Gold Glover, and we want him there. They're going to do all that because Bryce Harper wants to play first base. Yeah. He got a taste of the action on the infield, realized he's really good at it, realized he can be potentially great at it with the more, muscle memory reps and kind of cerebral part of first base. A whole offseason of it and a whole nother season. The guy's going to be a phenomenal first baseman. And Bryce Harper knows my best chance. Look, he's coming off a major throwing surgery from his UCL because he was gunning down people in the outfield. So I think Bryce Harper absolutely wants to play first base. So I don't see any scenario. I repeat, no scenario where Rhys Hoskins is back here. Now, I hope this doesn't get freezing cold taked in 2 months when they do something crazy outside the box. But Rhys Hoskins is destined to be a DH. He's not a good defensive player in baseball. The man is a pretty good DH. So I just don't see any scenario where he's back. I fully believe Bryce Harper wants to preserve his career by playing first base where it's less strain on your body. He's just not going to come out and say that, when he gets a microphone in front of his face in spring training, he's going to be like, no, I told the team whatever was best for the team and this and that. Behind closed doors, he's going, I know this means no more Rhys, but I want to play first base.
Correct. And that's what he should say. And I like your disclaimer because the internet is ruthless and they will come pulling things later. Like my song that I came up with like 2 months ago got recirculated that I was the reason why the Phillies lost. It's fine. Everything's fine. Renee? It was on me, guys. It was on me. But you're right. We don't know how this is going to age, but in this moment right now, as you're mentioning, Bryce Harper doing the correct thing. You don't come out if you're Bryce Harper and say, this is where I want to play. Otherwise, you come across like selfish. Exactly. You come across like a jerk because you know what that means for Rhys. Or even if you said you want to play right field, that's not on him to say. That's what Dave, that's what Rob, that's what they should be talking about. So I agree with you. It is a great thing to see that Bryce knows how to stay politically correct because a lot of players out here, unfortunately, do not and just run off at the mouth. And Bryce says all the correct things. That's why he's Bryce Harper, who we love.
He's been media he PhD'd in life. He's been doing this since he was like 16 years old. He knows how that would come off, saying Rhys is gone.
And that's what Dave Dombrowski's job is for, to have the hard comments and statements and conversations. And I know
you sell it as Dave Dombrowski did yesterday, which I actually believe that Bryce Harper is a baseball savant. He's a freak. He's the fastest kid alive. I actually believe he could be a Gold Glove first baseman. I mean, to see a guy come in and play it for the first time at that level that he did is borderline unbelievable. Everybody always says, first base, you just put somebody at first base. They're fine. Alec Boehm sucked in the field for the first 2 years. It was like, just put him at first base. First base is hard to play. It's not as easy as people think it is to play. You're involved in perhaps the most plays. It's a very cerebral position. It's hard. So I do believe Dave Dombrowski when he says that Bryce Harper can be a Gold Glove first baseman.
Yeah, exactly. I know Big Mike McD, you're saying defense needs a huge upgrade. I know Charlton Harley, you're saying it's ironic that Hoskins got injured fielding a routine ground ball in spring training. I know Lisa's saying that she also agrees 100% first base is best for Bryce in his career.
I think it's best for the team.
And I agree. I know I agree with what they're talking about, what Dave's mentioning about the longevity of his career as well.
Sure.
And we love Reese. It is hard to have this conversation. Let's switch over into the comments that did officially come out from Dave Dombrowski about Reese and about Bryce Harper. I know Dave P, you're saying Bryce can't focus solely on hitting at first. So let's recap it because we're all talking Bryce.
There's
and Reese.
a lot happening at the GM's meeting. Our pets are falling off.
Crap. All right, so Todd Zaleski shared it first. That's where I saw it at least, and was sharing the quotes from Dave Dombrowski on Bryce Harper. Now, Dave was saying, we decided we're going to play him, Bryce, at first base. He's happy to do whatever we wanted him to do.
Yeah, okay.
He said he'd play first base or the outfield. Again, like you said, Jamie, the politically correct comment. And Dave said he feels great, but the more we talked about it internally, we liked the idea of playing him at first. And then Dave also was saying that he did speak with Rhys Hoskins to tell him about the decision, and that Harper will be the everyday first baseman. He will not play right field. The Phillies see Kyle Schwarber as the primary DH, essentially leaving Hoskins nowhere to play, of course. And so Dave had the conversation with Bryce on Friday at Citizens Bank Park, allegedly, and then had the conversation with Hoskins on Sunday to tell him about the team's decision. So that's how he landed here, because we all heard it officially get dropped and broken. But as we're talking about, the plan is for Dave, as Davis said, for Bryce Harper to be able to stay at first base. He did finish the regular season with some great numbers, tied for third highest OAA among Phillies first baseman since 2016. He finished with 1 defensive run saved, according to Fangraphs. And again, that's not even with a full season under your belt. And that's the numbers he had, plus 2 outs above average in the regular season. All this is with him being thrown into a very new position and exceeding a lot of expectations. So that's how we landed here. And unfortunately, that does mean bye-bye Reese. I mean, I saw people tweeting about it, starting to say their goodbyes, talking about their favorite moments with Reese. It's not an easy thing at all.
There's been some really fun moments with
That's been so many.
Reese. I saw our buddy John Foley, who will be joining us tomorrow, put out like a montage of all of his home runs from last year. I mean, obviously the bat spike is going to be like first on a lot of people's minds. But another Twitter account I love, Absolutely Hammered, put out, I think, my favorite Rhys Hoskins moment when he hit a home run versus the Mets and he took 45 seconds to get around the bases. He did the slow jog up at Citi Field, and him and Bryce did the arm hook meathead celebration. 45 seconds. I love that. And Reese was awesome in the community. He does a ton for like the Muscular Dystrophy Foundation. He did some great events right down the street at our friends at Yards Brewery. So he was like an A+ Philly in the clubhouse, in the community. Probably exceeded expectations a little bit for what he was supposed to be in Major League Baseball. So all in all, it sucks to see a guy that was here during the lean years miss out on more championship windows. And part of me thinks, like, back all the time, I'm like, how different would this season have been if you had Reese protecting Bryce in an NLCS where Alec Boehm wasn't forced into the 4-hole? It could have been a lot different, because one of the things I'll miss about Rhys Hoskins is that man could have an at-bat.
Yeah.
He drew a lot of walks. He saw a lot of pitches. And when he was hot, his power was as good as anybody in baseball. Again, and there was ups and downs to it, but he always gave you quality at-bats.
Mm-hmm. It's tough because there were so many moments throughout the course of, especially the postseason, that we were thinking about how things would be different with Rhys Hoskins out there, and how much we were wanting Reese. And when we're talking on the show, as we were projecting him to possibly be back for the playoffs and what that looked like, it was so much excitement. But then on the other side of it, we would have never seen Bryce lock down first base. And sports are in general, such like a weird movie where you just never can predict what's going to happen. When we all saw Bryce Harper learning and working at first base way, way, way back in the early parts of the spring, we were all wondering, okay, what does this look like? How will Bryce actually step into first base? When will he be back? How will he return? So many questions. And Bryce Harper was steady at first base. So then you're feeling that sadness because it's very bittersweet. You discovered that Bryce Harper is a better first baseman than Rhys Hoskins, but we love Rhys Hoskins.
Tyler might be a better first baseman than Rhys Hoskins.
Which makes it bittersweet because...
Excuse you, I was a good defensive first baseman.
I don't doubt it.
But it makes it a bittersweet moment because then it's like, oh, but where does that leave Rhys? Because with Kyle Schwarber at DH, which we also love that move as well, not having to see him in the outfield, where does that leave Rhys? So it is hard because had Rhys not gotten injured, I don't know that we're having these conversations because you don't get a chance to see Bryce at first. So many speculatory what ifs, and if this had happened, shoulda, coulda, woulda, this.
Yeah, the ACL injury changed his career.
Changed his career.
Yeah, it really did. And I know, one of the other things that's been a talking point as we're talking about all this and how it affects the outfield and which decision. One thing I'm not interested in is trading Kyle Schwarber.
I know people have mentioned that.
And if you know me and the way I've talked about Schwarber, I just don't love him as a leadoff. I love him as a guy in the clubhouse and what he brings to the team. I think he's an absolute bargain. So, like, if you were to trade one of Castellanos or Schwarber, I'm trading Castellanos.
Yeah.
So I saw some people in the chat mentioning, trading Schwarber. I think he's an absolute bargain. There's only 2 years left, and the guy's I saw one of these advanced analytic accounts. He's projected to be second in home runs again next year behind Aaron Judge. So you just don't give those guys away for the sake of giving them away. I personally would not trade Kyle Schwarber. I think it's too good of a contract, and he hits far too many home runs.
Yeah, well, as we're talking through Nick Castellanos, we've talked about Rhys Hoskins' future. And there's another guy that we still have to talk about. But the good thing is, I think these are Philly through and through. And as we're talking on the farewell tour for somebody official, we haven't had the official, verdict yet, but we are reading between the lines that the days with Rhys Hoskins specifically are numbered.
He's gone.
Aaron Nola numbered. So you guys can go over to FOCO and check out their merchandise. Maybe you want to represent. I know Mickey Durkin, you said you felt like it was a kiss of death. Well, maybe it's a positive opportunity for you to go over to FOCO, buy some of the merch of your favorite players. I kind of like being able to have the iconic where they started in their career, like a Phillies bobblehead of someone like Rhys or something like that. So going over to FOCO, you can be able to purchase any apparel, merchandise, shoes, hats, overalls, wall hangings, whatever it is in terms of collectibles that you're looking for. And using the code PHLY, you can get 10% off of your purchase at FOCO. They've got great prices. They've got great products that honestly you don't really see anywhere else, and a great chance for you to be able to rock your favorite teams at FOCO using that code PHLY. Well, I know you guys are in the chats chiming in. We've switched over to NOLA. As you guys are listening, for anybody tuning in across podcast platforms, thanks for tuning in, listening to the show afterwards. But you, even though you're not live joining us, can still, as many of you do, tag us on Twitter, jump in the Discord channel that we have for all of our diehards to be able to keep the conversation going, because every day has been a lot so far.
I love it.
And it's been great. It's been very fun to watch because you're just constantly, I'm getting the MLB updates again. And I'm like, yes, finally the MLB app updates are something I can look forward to, or maybe not look forward to. So the other name that you guys have been tossing around that we have not officially addressed yet, Aaron Nola, because we did start to hear the conversations as John Morosi tweeted out, the Phillies are interested in Sonny Gray, sources say, and will be a top suitor for him if they do not retain free agent Aaron Nola. Gray and Philly pitching coach Caleb Cotham are former college teammates and worked well together while Cotham was with the Reds, so they have that history. And Sonny Gray, who I brought up as a pitcher to possibly bring in my list, has now been deemed as one of the front runner to replace Aaron Nola. In the chat, you guys have already started talking about Nola.
I think that sucks.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's a massive downgrade from Aaron Nola. Like, Sonny Gray's okay. He's solid. He's coming off a career year. He was a Cy Young finalist. I just think the drop-off from Nola to Gray is a massive one. And he's a guy that's getting up there in age. Like, is he going to get better? I don't know. Did he unlock something last year in Minnesota that he can take forward for another 2 or 3 years? Like, I understand you're going to get him at a much cheaper rate than Aaron Nola, but I think that's a big drop-off. I'm not like disagreeing with your opinion because there's a very real scenario where he's here. I I just think it's big.
I didn't give an opinion yet. I was reading the details.
No. Well, one of your guys, that you targeted.
I listed him as a starting.
Yeah, it's a very real possibility, clearly. But I just think like your starting rotation is worse, and that's like, and look, if it's Sonny Gray and somebody else and 2 extra bullpen arms, okay, maybe it balances out. But ultimately, like, pitching is not why they lost. So to downgrade, and look, I think there's only 1 or 2 guys in this entire free agent class, pitching wise, that is equal to or better than Nola, and that's Yamamoto potentially. We don't know,
Right.
And Blake Snell, I think is but he doesn't have the durability that Nola has. So everything else is a downgrade, whether it's Jordan Montgomery or Sonny Gray or whoever. You're taking a step back, and that's a tough pill to swallow a little bit. So, like I said with the Castellanos thing, you kind of have to see like what comes with it and where you spread those resources out. Because if you're talking, say, Nola, is going to get 25 to 30 a year, what are you spending that 25 or 30 on? If it means 2 or 3 pieces, does that counterbalance the 1 piece that you get every 5 days? Maybe. But I just think starting pitching wise, we're kind of due for a downgrade here. Because there's only 2 guys that are kind of equal to or better than. Like, that's the way I view it. And Aaron Nola's, I think, going to be missed. I really do.
Yeah. I know in the chat, and it's exactly like you're touching on, Jamie. Different people, and I know, Tyler, I'm sorry. There's a lot of comments. Keep the comments coming. But if you could scroll up a little bit. Yes. If you could scroll up a little bit and then work down. Yes. So you guys are talking about Sonny Gray is the Vanderbilt legend. Mickey's on the Jamie train. I know a number of you were also
says
talking
he's a bridge
about
to
correct.
What's his name?
To
Painter.
Painter, not a
Which
bad
is fine,
solution.
but we don't know if Painter's actually going to be it or not.
I agree. I know Chris, you're talking about he's got a 4+ ERA over the past 3 seasons. You can pay less for that. A number of you were saying that you don't like it is a downgrade from Nola. And we agree. And listen, that's why on the show, I guess it was Tuesday, and the days are overlapping at this point, we all talked about the fact that Nola, Snell, and Yamamoto are the top 3 without a doubt. That's easily, I don't think anybody would disagree.
And
The top 3 starting pitchers that are available are those 3. And then after that, as we were talking to our 4 and 5 guy, that's why I brought Sonny Gray up. Because I do think that, as some of you have touched on with Sonny Gray, at 33 years old, I think he's a plug-and-play type of guy. I think he'll work well with Caleb. He's obviously worked with him in the past, and Gotham did a good job with helping him at Cincinnati kind of get over the hump a bit. I don't think he's someone you're bringing in expecting to be Aaron Nola. I think the only deal that would make sense for me is he would come in and allow you to bring in other pieces because you could get him for cheaper. I'm a bargain shopper, but we're doing a lot of bargain shopping these days, apparently, with the Phillies is what it's feeling like. So there have been some different comments that have come out about the Phillies and just kind of like how this would play out. And it appears that the Phillies are possibly just putting this together as a backup plan. The initial hope is to, of course, be able to re-sign Aaron Nola. This is what sources are indicating.
Yeah, I think he's as good as gone.
Yes, but of course, the Phillies have to have a plan in case Aaron Nola declines and walks. And their backup plan is to, if they can't re-sign Nola, then be able to bring in Sonny Gray as an alternative rotation option and then see what you can do from there. So obviously, as we all talked about, there's not much out there better than Aaron Nola. But if you're able to, at least for Aaron Nola, you get someone like Sonny Gray and a couple other, bullpen arms that you now can afford, I get what you got to work with. If Nola doesn't want to come back, got to move on and
he's just going to make more money that the Phillies are uncomfortable matching.
And that's where you're going to lose out because he's going to request more.
It looks like is estimated to get around 4 years and $90 million. So if you're talking about a 4-year deal for Aaron Nola, that's probably going to be upwards of 120. So there is that $30 million in savings that maybe some of that goes directly to Zach Wheeler for his extension. So, like, that's another aspect of this. Like, it's hard to react to one move in these situations because you have to know what the other shoe to drop is with those situations. The other thing about Sonny Gray, and look, he does have some pretty impressive numbers. The thing that you're also going to lose out on is innings pitched. He's only gone over 150 innings, it looks like, twice over the last 6 years. And with Aaron Nola, you dealt with the ups and downs in the RAV4 fourth innings, but that was 200 innings a year. you didn't have to sweat. Like, you just knew he wasn't going to get injured. He was going to be there. He was Mr. Durable, Mr. Reliability for you.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, there's a good chance Sonny Gray isn't going to go over 170 innings, best case scenario.
Yeah.
So, that's another aspect of it. But if you're getting Sonny Gray and saving some money, are you bringing in more bullpen arms? Are you bringing in maybe a top middle relief guy?
Right.
Stuff like that to eat those innings. Yeah, it's certainly possible. There's worse situations than Sonny Gray. It's just, I think after those top 3 guys that we've discussed, it's a significant drop off. And Jordan Montgomery was a guy that I've seen now tied to the Phillies and the Red Sox as a possibility. So Sonny Gray appears to be the top choice on the rumor mill here. But Jordan Montgomery, I read last night, and I'll have to find who said that exactly. But he looks like another name that could be thrown in the mix here as well. It seems like, John Heyman this morning said on MLB Network, the Phillies will sign a top pitcher.
Yeah.
And he was emphatic about it, and they have to. That's the reality here. Because if you lose Aaron Nola, and I think he's as good as gone, I think he's going to Texas or St. Louis, probably Texas. You have to get somebody, or your World Series odds take a major hit.
Without a doubt. And obviously, no, Dave, as we were talking about the postseason conversations, Dave Dombrowski has always been saying the goal is to try to keep Aaron Nola, but money is a factor here, a very big factor at that. And as we mentioned, and as we've talked about many times here, the Phillies simply will not be able to afford him, especially with Zach Wheeler and needing to give him more money. I know Montgomery is someone that I would be highly, Christian, you'd be highly uncomfortable with. I actually think on the opposite words, I can speak, guys.
And by the way, Jordan Montgomery's not cheap.
No, not at all. But I do think he's a starting pitcher that you can keep an eye on. And I know I highlighted him as well before because I do think he much like Sonny Gray can give you kind of those insert immediately types of players. You don't have to worry about the development side. But back to Sonny Gray, a 2.79 ERA in 184 innings across 32 starts.
This year.
Cy Young finalist. Definitely had a better season this past year. He is on the older side. But I know you guys are talking about in the chat as well, Sanchez and Suarez and what all this could mean for them. I know... Scroll up a little bit, Tyler. I'm so sorry. I love that we have so many comments in the chat, but I want to make sure I'm hitting on that.
You filthy animals.
Yeah, I want to hit on some of the different voices. Hypothetical Man saying, you have 2 nice pieces in Suarez and Sanchez, and that MBD's got him drinking the Sanchez Kool-Aid.
I like
Zachary
Sanchez a lot.
Garforth, you're saying, they have to take the reins off of Suarez eventually. I know, Mickey, you're asking about, does this make Suarez the number 2? And,
Sonny Gray's the 2 ahead. If he's the guy that's here, even Jordan Montgomery, both of them are 2s.
I think they want to sign.
But Ranger's another guy. It's like, how many times has he gone over 150 innings? I don't know if he has yet. I'll have to go look at his stats here, but like the innings thing is a big deal. And that's apparently why the Texas Rangers are in love with him, because of his durability. So like, could Ranger be the number 2? I hope not. And I love Ranger. I love Ranger. He's adorable.
I know you love Ranger.
But he's like a great number 3 to have. But again, if you're bringing in Sonny Gray, that's 50 or 60 less innings you have to account for. And then that's assuming that Ranger Suarez is kind of able to hold up his end of the bargain and get over 150 innings. So it's, that innings total thing becomes an issue with who you sign and who you go after here. And nobody really gives you what Aaron Nola gives you in that regard. Like, that's just not something to sleep on in these conversations. Yeah,
and I actually, the reason I like Jordan
Ranger
Montgomery,
went over once. Well, 155 innings.
Wild.
125 and 106 in his 3 major seasons as a starter.
Yeah, and I think as we talked about earlier this week, there are good starting pitchers that are out there. I know as we're talking about Jordan Montgomery, someone who we saw struggle after he was traded to the Astros. That's because he only got to pitch in like 11 games. But in the postseason specifically, you saw him kind of get back to what Montgomery can do and be much better in his 5 starts with a 2.90 ERA in the postseason, a 135 whip in his 31 innings pitched, gave up 11 runs. He was great in the postseason. I think what I've looked at for the starting pitchers, and much like the outfield, I know eventually we will finally get over and talk about the outfield and run through that quickly, is the fact that you also have to look at situations and trending in the right direction, because baseball, as we know, you can have a down year, you can have an up year. So when you're looking at those pieces that you're looking to bring in, someone like Montgomery or Sonny Gray, okay, what is their upswing? How could you use them? What roles would they play, and how would they be a good fit? And so I think there are some guys that they're not Aaron Nola, but you can make it work.
So Lisa in the chat brings up a good point in a lot of these free agent discussions is the long-term deal versus the short-term deal. And now I'm not saying Aaron Nola is going to get a short-term deal. He's also going to get a long-term deal. But with Jordan Montgomery, the projections, and again, these are all just projections based on years prior and current, speculative contract talks or whatever, is a 6-year deal and $150 million as a ballpark. Jordan Montgomery's been a good pitcher. Most teams, he's probably a really quality number 2 on the majority of staffs. 6 years, do I know? I don't know. Maybe that's a me issue where I just don't know Jordan Montgomery enough to project 6 years down the line. It's a hard thing to get because that is a lot of money. Yeah. And, while he's had a good career and a pretty consistent career, where's his velocity at? Where's, you have to know a little bit about the guy and kind of what makes him tick. And do you feel comfortable going that 6-year, $150 million deal? Because Lisa's point is a lot of these long-term deals end up biting teams in the ass. And it's true. And especially with pitchers, it's a really hard thing to project.
Yeah, I think for Montgomery, coming off of, a great postseason where we saw him against the Astros in 14 innings, held them to just 2 runs in the ALCS, was a contributor in the World Series title run. 30 years old, 6 years, that is tough. And at least that's a great point you're bringing up. I know MBD's adding off of Lisa's point. The great teams don't sign 30-year-old arms to 7-year deals. They replace them with Strider, Fried, Urias,
he's not
Bueller.
wrong.
You're right. I mean, I think that's
Look at us, MBD.
You guys are on the same page for once. I like that.
We're always on the same page.
Are you?
Yeah, he's just irrational with his. Who was he talking about?
He wasn't irrational because Hader is a terrible person.
Well, no. It wasn't Hader. It was one before that. Oh, Blake Snell.
Oh, it was Blake Snell. The Blake Snell one, you guys are on different spots. But
that's all right.
30 years old. I don't know that a 6-year deal would make sense for him.
That scares me a little bit, I'll be honest.
Very intimidating. And as we all know, once you get over the 30 hump, things move a little differently. That's it's old in sports. Unfortunately, so
I hurt my hip sleeping the other night. I think so.
My hips. I'm 31, and my hips pop randomly. Knees are swollen randomly. It's tough. But yeah, a lot to keep an eye on, and of course, yesterday we were outlining things, and then a lot of stuff really broke through in the past 24 hours. So I'm interested to see what the next 24 hours holds. But with all that being said, Jamie, I know you, myself, Tyler, we want to quickly run through some outfield options. It's crazy to think how fast this time goes by on the show, but we obviously started to think through, okay, what options do you have to strengthen the outfield? Because Marsh, Pache, Rojas, Yoro, Casty.
Yoro's in the minors. I think you only get a nickname when you're up in the majors consistently for a full year. Your boy Yoro is going to start the year in the minors.
You can still get a nickname. I
guess.
I don't know the rules of nicknames, but we've talked about the outfield. The outfield needs to be strengthened. So, Jamie, start us off with 2 guys that you think would be absolute great additions to the Phillies outfield.
Yeah, so when I originally gave this list, I was kind of thinking of guys that could play left field because now that Kyle Schwarber's in his natural place of DH, it's a great spot for him to be. Brandon Marsh, to me, like we talked about earlier, Nick Castellanos being a trade chip. I actually think Brandon Marsh is a decent trade chip because I think his stock improved here last year under Kevin Long. He improved as a hitter. He seems to like playing left field more than he likes playing center field. Regardless, he's a nice chip to have because he's versatile, meaning you could put him in left or center. I would prefer to have him and Pache as the everyday center field platoon.
Okay.
And with Pache, by platoon, I mean once or twice a week at most. So it would be Brandon Marsh in center field. That could open up left field. Or if you move Nick, it could open up right field. So you're kind of looking at these corner outfield positions. So I originally started thinking like Teoscar Hernandez is a guy, and I know Tyler's cringing because he has a high strikeout rate. I originally had him in mind as a left fielder. Now he can play either corner outfielder. He's kind of a below an average at best fielder. Like he's not going to win any gold gloves for you. But he was in Seattle this past year, kind of had a slow start. But post-June, he put up really strong numbers, 26 home runs, and ended up with 93 RBIs over the year, played 160 games, so he's durable in that regard. He's had 25 home runs in each of his past 4 full seasons, and he has a career OPS of over 800. He has a strong arm, but as I said, average at best fielder. Some people think he's going to be a DH in a couple years, which is a conversation you have with most guys that are average at best fielders. He does strike out a lot. That's the negative. But he's fairly consistent when it comes to OPS, batting average. I think a little more consistent than, say, Nick Castellanos. So Teoscar Hernandez is definitely a guy that intrigues me some. Another guy real quick, Jorge Soler, another guy that's going to probably eventually be a DH. So, like those prospects, that all comes into this equation because like Justin Crawford, who we'll dive into more this offseason, he could be your everyday starting center fielder in 2 years. So does that make Rojas expendable? Does that make Marsh expendable? This is why, Brian Barber, Dave Dombrowski, and Preston Mattingly get paid the big bucks because they have to calculate all of this into that. And then another guy I like potentially is Lourdes Gurriel, who we just saw in the Arizona Diamondback series. Here's a couple stats on him. 261, 309, 463, split 24 home runs, 82 RBIs last year. Now, he's the opposite of Teoscar Hernandez, where he has a very low strikeout rate. Struck out only just over 100 times last year, and he's pretty consistent when it comes to home and road. So if you're looking for like a consistent upgrade, and Nick Castellanos is the guy to move on, Gurriel is consistent. So those are 3 guys that kind of jump off the free agent list to me. How about you, Renee? Where are you falling on some of these outfielders?
Yeah, so I actually was going to go with Gurriel as well, but I wanted to
I know MBD
talk about,
or somebody in the chat, Eugene Kraft, somebody's all Gurriel.
To me, I think he's like the top outfielder that I'm very interested in, especially watching when he did the Phillies in the postseason, sadly. But I wanted to give some other names because I don't want to just have the same exact names and agree with you. So I just wanted to toss out some names that people can kind of pay attention to for unique reasons. So first one's Cody Bellinger. I think at 28 years old, he can. What I like about my list, and I'm not paying the bill, so the money is what the money is.
Yeah, you're spending John Middleton's money.
I'm a spender.
Racking that credit card bill.
I just said I was a bargain shopper, but I am a spender with that too. Woo. So I like versatile pieces. Now for Cody, did have a rough 2021-2022 season. Obviously, a 2019 National League MVP. We saw in the 130 games played in 2023 a 307, 356, 525 split, 26 home runs, 97 RBIs, had a career high in average and stolen bases, was the career best.
Bargain
and
for the Cubs.
Exit velocity lowest of his career, though. But I think that for him at 28 years old and having a rough stretch, that with the right group, maybe he can bounce back. We saw with the Cubs, it was kind of like a season of redemption and coming back. And I think for a multi-year deal that he could be someone that's a decent target to pick up. I like the versatility, which is why I also went with somebody else that might raise some eyebrows in Whit Merrifield.
By the way, before we move on to Whit, do you know the projected numbers on Cody Bellinger?
It's up there. It's very high.
Now, again, these are just speculative. 12.
You're the money person. I'm just the spend it all person.
12 years, $265 million.
That's not what the Phillies would sign him for.
I am.
He's not getting that.
If Cody Bellinger is anything over,
he's not getting that.
6 years, I'm out. 12 years is asinine. North of $200 million is asinine because somebody said in the chat earlier, high risk, high reward. Yeah. Because
he's not getting that. He's not getting that.
Are you his agent?
Yeah.
Baseball's crazy.
Yeah, because here's the thing. You had 2 really bad seasons. The reason why I like him is I think there's room for negotiation. I think you can have a conversation with him and say, realistically,
you're San Francisco Giants who are desperate need, are just going, here's a blank check, man, right?
Yeah, but do you want to play for a team that you could win a title? Do you want to play for a team that
those guys want the bag.
Hey, take the bag and go lose.
That's the biggest farce in sports is guys will always take the bag.
If you don't want that deal because you'd rather go somewhere else where you can get paid, that's fine. We don't want you anyways. I like negotiating pieces because no one is, Zachary, I agree with you. No one is signing him for that. He's not getting that 12 years. He's not getting that.
I don't think he's going to get 12 years, but the point is he's probably going to get north of $200 million. The San Francisco Giants have big pockets and they're desperate for outfielders. Somebody's going to pay him over $200 million.
And that is fine because then we don't want him anyways.
Crazy. I agree with everybody that says he's not going to get that.
No.
That's crazy. I would if you give Cody Bellinger 12 years as a GM, like you're probably not going to be the GM for much longer.
No.
But the fact is a lot of teams need outfield help and some teams have money to spend.
Well, spend away because we're not doing that here. But what I like is if you can negotiate, he's got some versatility. And this past season was a much better season for him prior to the last 2 years. Yes. So on the other side, I'm sticking with the versatility piece and someone that you could possibly get for less because you can negotiate. I'm all about that too.
This guy for less,
yeah, Whit Merrifield you can definitely get for less as well. 35 years old. He's on the other end of the age spectrum. He's on the mid-30 side. 145 games played in 2023, a 272, 318, 382 split with just 11 home runs, 67 RBIs. 26 stolen bases, 201 steals, an 8-year career, and he started 67 games at second base and 70 games in the outfield. I like the fact he can give you second base, outfield, kind of wherever you need him.
We were supposed to have this guy in Scott Kingery.
He is a 3-time All-Star, and I think that versatility piece is something that I feel like the Phillies down the stretch, we were kind of like, okay, who do we move? Where? I'm all about versatility. Injuries happen. Things happen throughout it's a very long season. So to be able to have a guy that you can, if you notice my consistent theme is a plug and play type of a player. It's a win now mentality and focus on the rest later. So someone like Whit Merrifield, much like Sonny Gray for me in pitching, is a plug and play type of guy. I think you can get him for less. And I think he can give you a nice versatile piece that's just steady, especially if you can bring him in with a couple other pieces. And I'm going to throw out there Jorge Soler because I know he's been mentioned as well.
Yeah, I like Soler a little bit.
Yeah, I think he's someone that, obviously we saw him winning World Series MVP honors. We saw him with a 3-year, $36 million deal with the Marlins. And he's someone that, while I didn't want to lead off with him, I think that, at 32 years old, can play outfield, can be a DH if for in the future for somebody someone that's been bounced around as a possible name. So my biggest thing I want to stress is my favorite option is Gurriel, but I feel like you already took Lord, so I'm not going to just ride the Jamie train and continue saying the exact same thing as you. I'm going to throw some other names out there that at least give you something different, maybe financially.
Your Whit Merrifield, yes. I think he's been a guy that's been tied to the Phillies like kind of every trade deadline every single year because it's just like every team can use a Whit Merrifield, but to your point of his value, he's projected, and again, don't roast me. These are just, people projecting these things that study this a lot more in depth than we do. He's projected for a 2-year, $18 million deal on the market.
Yeah, that's nice.
So, he's great because he could come in and give Bryson Stott a breather. And I know Sosa's going to be back, but he can give a lot of guys breathers. That versatility is clutch, and he's a very consistent offensive player.
I knew somebody was going to say that, and I didn't mean, all right, MBDBDBF, whatever. I literally knew somebody was going to say that. Okay, I don't want this to become we're all just saying the same things, fluffy show. I'm going to give you guys something that's going to make you think a little differently. Well, Merrifield might be a massive downgrade, but at least you can get him for cheap.
Yeah, he's cheap.
And listen, it's a numbers game too, just as much as it is about talent. So yes, Tyler, let's go to you on that note.
Yeah, what I really like about this game, especially today, that the way we've played it is we have 3 different people who have taken this in 3 different directions.
Oh yeah,
Jamie went very top end. If you're trading Castellanos, who do you replace? And these are the big name guys that you'd like to get. Renee, you went with versatility and guys that can play at a multitude of positions. I would approach this as if the Phillies were not moving Castellanos or Schwarber, and I was looking for...
I want Teoscar even if they don't move Castellanos. I want him being left field.
And see, that's my thing is that the reason I stayed away from a lot of these guys is I don't believe Teoscar Hernandez nor Lourdes Gurriel is a player that would take a fourth outfielder spot. Like you would have to be able.
No, you can be your starting left fielder.
So, unless Marsh is moving to center.
That's where I'm putting him.
So that was why I kind of stayed away from it, under the impression that you were looking for. My thought was looking for a fourth outfielder. So I went for a couple of different guys with a little bit more value. The first is
you went
to
Home Goods instead of Pottery Barn.
Pretty much, yeah. I went to Etsy.
You can get some good shit at Home Goods, though.
So I went with guys that I think that are a little bit older, a little bit, have some mileage on them, maybe some injury history as well, but probably would be willing to take a fourth outfield spot on some better teams. And the first guy is a guy that hasn't been healthy in a couple years, but he's done that over the last 2 seasons, is Michael Brantley.
I like Michael Brantley.
He's a guy that I've liked since he was with Cleveland. Now, obviously, the injury history has been extremely concerning, and I think he's only played in like 60 games over the last 2 seasons. But his last full season was 2021. He slashed 311, 362, 437. He's not the pop guy that he once maybe was, especially in his early days in Cleveland, but he's a consistent hitter, and he's a guy that's going to get on base for you at a pretty high clip. And I think what they were lacking was somebody who had something coming off the bench that's not Jake Cave. Brantley's a guy I think at this point of his career is looking for a redemption arc, and maybe that sways him away from signing a fourth outfielder position or fourth outfielder deal. But the fact remains he's played 100 games just once in the last 4 years. He's a very consistent hitter when he's healthy. He was weirdly like a healthy scratch for the later portion of the playoffs for the Astros this year, but it's probably because they're a full roster and they're insanely deep. But Michael Brantley to me is somebody that stands out as a guy that could give you some serious bench contribution that you did not have.
Yeah, like if he was your fourth outfielder and a bench bat, that would be awesome. Just concerned about relying on him, as you said, with the injury history of being kind of like an everyday guy. But as a fourth outfielder, sure.
Bring his wheelchair. Tyler, you had a second person. I'll let you jump in on who else. And again,
remember, listen, this is a conversation on fourth outfielders for me. I'm not looking for somebody that's going to play 125 games a year.
You're looking for 2 things. You're either looking for the guys you have in mind to platoon with Christian Pache in center and corner outfield.
Correct.
Or you're looking for an everyday left fielder and you move Brandon Marsh back to center field. So you do kind of have versatility to take this a couple different ways.
Correct. And that's why the other guy is a guy that's been bounced around quite a bit over the last couple of years, but it's a guy I've had my eye on the last couple of trade deadlines. He did get moved this deadline. He went from Colorado, weirdly enough, to the LA Angels, and it's Randall Grichuk. He much lower statistical slash line. He is a pesky hitter, right? He's a 267, posted a 267, 321, 459 split last year. He does have a little bit of pop. He played 118 games. He can play both corner outfields. He can conceivably maybe give you some first. I wouldn't consider it, but they tried Jake Cave, so I have no idea what Rob Thompson's got up his sleeve. He had a career low in strikeout percentage last year. His plate discipline has gotten better year after year, and he had his highest hard hit percentage since 2018, which means he was seeing the ball really well. He was especially seeing the ball well in Colorado. The numbers dipped when he went to LA, which makes sense when you leave Colorado. He's played for 4 teams over the last 3 years. I think maybe he's looking for a more consistent home. This is a guy that I'd be extremely happy with if they went with like 2-year, $18 to $20 million range. I would probably go over AAV to get a guy like this, just to have that continuity and consistency off the bench, and a guy that I know can step in if one of the outfielders isn't playing.
Yeah, and I hated him when he was with the Cardinals, and I think that speaks to like your pesky offensive player, just a real pain in the ass. But you know who's not a pain in your ass, Tyler? That's our friends over at Wheelhouse Cards. You should check them out because they are awesome. It's our go-to sports card gift and apparel shop in the Delaware Valley. They have 2 locations in Wayne and Westchester, and their motto is cards and community, because we're all here because we all love sports. They carry all of your favorite card brands like Topps Chrome Baseball and Mosaic Football, as well as T-shirts, hats, and hoodies from brands like 47 brand, Mitchell & Ness, Junk Food, Starter, and one of my favorites, Shibe Vintage Sports. So you're looking to grade your sports card collections? I know a lot of people are. Wheelhouse offers PSA grading submissions. They also host a ton of family-friendly events. Michael Rubin was out there last weekend giving some stuff away, visiting the store, and birthday parties every month. So if your kid's into cards, great place to have a birthday party. Stop into either of their stores in Wayne or Westchester. Open 7 days a week at 11 a.m. Use code PHLY to get $10 off any purchase of $25 or more in store. Also, be sure to give them a follow on Instagram at Wheelhouse Cards.
All right. Well, guys, I know there's a lot of other news and things that we'll be able to hit on and talk about probably in our show tomorrow, but it is game time. Finally, the moment we've been waiting for. Now, this segment is not sponsored by Game Time, but it could be. As we're talking about the 30 different ballparks around Major League Baseball, you also can buy tickets to go to an arena, a stadium, any game using the Game Time app. And now with the Game Time app, you're able to see your seats. You can exactly get a sense of where you and your buddies are going to be catching all the action. And the Game Time app allows you to find great tickets, great prices. And with the code PHLY, again, for those listening on podcast platforms or watching, it's on your screen. PHLY gets you $20 off of your purchase at the Game Time app. So now when you go out to the ballpark in 2024 or at any of the NBA or NFL games or hockey games, whatever it is, you've got a chance to check out where your tickets are, where your seats are, for games, for concerts, for any other events. Because it's finally game time, guys. Jamie and I are down, but we're not out. We lost twice in the first times that we played Guess That Ballpark. And it's time, I think third time is a charm for us to finally get one right.
No, it's probably...
Now, as we've already talked about, for anybody that's new to this and hasn't been able to play yet, we are going to be shown an outline of a ballpark.
Oh, God.
We've already had two so far. We had Fenway, we had Busch Stadium. We were wrong for both. It's not that easy, guys. It's not that easy.
I miss Fenway.
So it's just the ballpark. It's not everything else around it. And so with the outline, we have to guess it. You guys in the chat, please
Guess
drop your thoughts
because we won't be
on
right.
which ballpark you think it is. Is there cheating? Because I think I want to.
I don't even know if I can cheat properly. Even if I tried.
I think I found something that might be able to help me be closer to being correct, but it's not an outline, so it's not going to help.
Yeah, it's just
so
I'm going to consult.
I'm going to do research. I'm not cheating. I'm going to do research. All right, so we were wrong on the first, so let's see if we can get this one correct. Tyler Zulli's got the correct ballpark for us.
Oh, jeez.
Wait, are you kidding? It literally looks just like Busch Stadium to me. Because it's the Puma
I think
face.
for you guys, there is one definitive there's one definitive optic on this that will help you greatly.
Wait, is this the same one that you accidentally flashed?
No, this is not the same one. No.
Right field corner?
No! So Tyler accidentally flashed the ballpark earlier with the name of it, and I was hoping that you're going to use the same one so I could get one right. Jamie, did you just have a guess?
I think I have two in my head. Tyler, the thing you think
I'm not going to tell you the answer to that.
No. The thing you think is unique, is it the right field corner?
That's what I'm saying. I'm not giving you that answer.
I'm going to guess City Field, actually. I'm going to guess City Field. Blink twice if I'm close.
The two I have in my mind, I'll say, and that's Dodger Stadium and Yankee Stadium.
Okay.
But I feel like both are wrong.
Hypothetical man's also saying Dodgers with a question mark. So I don't know how confident you're feeling with that, hypothetical man. Randy's saying Yankees. Dave's saying Allenhead.
I'm going Yankees.
Yankees are a couple others.
The short right field porch, it does look like it's cut a little bit from center to right, more so than it is center to left. I'm going to go Yankee Stadium. That's my final answer.
Have you heard a correct answer yet? Let's go with that first.
Do you mean in the chat or from you guys or both?
Both. Just both.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so excited.
Okay.
Could I be right? I'm probably not.
They're saying it actually. I don't see Citizens Bank
I'm going
Park.
Yankees.
Randy might be right. What did Randy say again?
It could be Citizens Bank Park. This game is hard.
I don't know.
No, I'm going Yankees. I'm sticking Yankees. Final answer from me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous because somebody's right and I want it to be me. It's City Field.
It's gonna be like Citizens Bank Park, and
no, it's not because Citizens Bank Park looks more like a bell a little bit.
Are we locking those answers in?
Mine's locked.
Yankees and City Field.
This is why I can't play these games. I'm gonna lock it. Wait, can you now? Oh man!
Yeah, I got
one. Oh man!
Yeah.
Can I get half points for being in the correct stage?
No.
One. I thought I was going to go 0-4 after missing Fenway.
Man,
so I'm really...
I was at least in the Empire State. I'm giving myself a half point, even if everybody else does.
Man, that feels good. Now I feel like a beer. I wasn't going to drink today, but now I feel like celebrating.
Man.
Anybody want to in the chat down for meeting for a beer? I just got one right. First round's on me.
So, Jamie, now that you finally... I said third time is a charm, and it was for you.
Yeah, it was. Whew.
How does this make you feel?
I feel alive. I feel pretty great. I'm not going to be honest. I don't even think I need coffee anymore.
You're not going to be honest.
I thought I was going to go 0 for 30, so I'm ecstatic, man. Woo.
Man, Jamie finally got one correct, and that is it. I know some other guesses were in the chat were saying Fran, we saw Dodgers. You also said 2.
I had
but
2
you did
in my
lock
head.
in on...
Yeah, I had Dodgers and Yankee in my
guys,
head.
we've got to prepare. I know MADBDBF saying you're horrendous at this game. So am I. I'm glad it's not just me. It's really hard. And I tried to cheat too, Dave, and I still guessed wrong also.
I would say cheating is welcome in this game because it's hard.
Technically, you cannot cheat. I'm actually looking at pictures of ballparks, but it doesn't matter because it looks totally different.
Cheating's welcome in real baseball.
Yeah. Stealing signals. Cheat away, people.
All right, we're going to work together, guys. We're going to start getting these correct. We're going to all bring our resources and cheating and minds. And tomorrow on our Friday edition, we're going to get it right. Jamie got one right. Happy for you. Did anybody else in the chat get it right? I thought I saw a couple Yankees.
Yeah.
Mickey Durkin said Yankees. Oh, look at you two. Randy. Hypothetical Man did say Randy was correct. So by default, Hypothetical Man was also in a way correct. All right, good job, you guys. I'm proud of you. You all get a pat on the back or a round of applause. Remember that from back in school? Okay. Tyler does.
No.
A round of applause? Let's give ourselves a round of applause. You know? Was I the only cool one that did that? Okay.
Yeah, cool. Yep, that's the word I would use. I'm the only one too cool
for school that I did that. All right, well.
Must be a Jersey thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's go with that. All right. We've got more Guess That Ballpark tomorrow. We also have our Friday with Foley's edition or Fridays with Foley tomorrow as well because we've got more to unpack, more news that's come out around the Phillies, more updates. We'll be keeping an eye. It's Nola Watch, it's Reese Watch, and it's Nick Watch that we're also keeping an eye on.
Rumor mill.
Rumor mill has been cooking. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a pleasure. Jamie won, I didn't, so it hasn't been that much of a pleasure. It's been kind of frustrating that we ended on that sour note, but happy for you, Jamie, I guess, or whatever.
Brandon Woodruff, MBD says he'd give his left arm for. It's mighty big of you.
That may be what we have to talk about Friday. What are you willing to donate to lock in a big name? Soto, Woodruff, whoever it is. That's it for us here on PHLY Phillies podcast. And as always, be sure to subscribe, like, comment. If you miss us live on YouTube, you can watch us back on YouTube later, or you can jump on to your favorite podcast platforms and listen to us in the car, at home, while you're jogging, while you're going for a walk with your dog and your kids, whatever it is, we've always got you covered with plenty of Phillies content. For Tyler Zulli, Jamie Lynch, myself, Renee Washington, thanks for joining us. Have a fantastic rest of your Thursday, and we'll see you back here for Friday for our Friday with Foley edition. Right? A bright and early 11 a.m. edition. Yeah. Oh, look at you.
I'm on point this week.
It's the sneakers, I'm telling you.
Probably my brain gets smarter when my feet are sweating hot.
Instead of having all this access to stupidity, it's like you're locked in, literally. You're locked in the socks. Ugh. So, yes, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. If you're traveling for whatever reason and you're not on Eastern time, 11 a.m. we'll be back live with more to talk about. Have a great one, guys.
We all silly like the mayor.